Mr. President, we know of your basketball background. What kind of baseball guy are you?
Well, you know, I am a big baseball fan. I didn't play organized baseball, and I grew up in Hawaii. My earliest memories of baseball were actually the Hawaii Islanders, which was was a minor league team.
Pacific Coast League.
Pacific Coast League, and it old rambling ballpark that was about maybe 6 blocks from my grandparents' apartment, and we'd go in there and you know, get boiled peanuts and watch the night game. And me and my friends, this is when we were 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, we'd run out and try to grab the rosin bag at the end of the game, cause havoc onto the field. And so those are my earliest memories of baseball. But I never, partly because when I was really young, I was living overseas. You know, I never got involved in Little League and didn't have the chance to become part of an organized baseball team.
You remember the first major league game you ever attended?
When I was 11 years old, going to a Royals game because my grandmother's brother lived in Kansas City, and I still remember going to that game. Had a great time.
So I'm trying to do the math. 11 years old.
11 years old.
1970s.
This would have been
early 70s?
72, 73, and I have to confess, I do not remember who was playing for the Royals back then.
So it's just before they got good. It's just before George Brett
That's exactly.
and Whitey Herzog and Hal McRae.
Brett wasn't playing yet, and then, so I'm trying to. I don't even think I have any idea who was in that lineup.
They were only a few years into expansion.
Yeah, but I remember having a great time at the game.
All right, so you're wearing your White Sox windbreaker. Your team's 3.5 back in the American League Central.
They've come back. I mean, at the beginning of the season, we were all feeling a little fearful. At this point, I think they've got a real chance.
Optimistic about the second half.
Always optimistic.
Now, you're a man known for his even demeanor.
Right.
What's up with your man Ozzie Guillen?
You know, Ozzie, it works for him. What can I tell you? You know, we were trying to figure out who curses more, Ozzie Guillen or Rahm Emanuel, and we couldn't. You know, from what I understand, I think Ozzie takes the prize.
And from what I'm told, in order to outdo Rahm Emanuel in the profanity department, you got to go some.
You got to go at it. But it works for him. I heard he just insulted Wrigley Field.
Right.
And, you know, he says what's on his mind. That's a good thing.
And you wear that Sox windbreaker, and make no bones about it. You're a South Sider, you're a White Sox guy, not a Cubs guy.
Listen, I'm not a Cubs hater. You know, there's a certain type of White Sox fan that actively roots against the Cubs. So when the Bartman,
right,
there were people who celebrated on the South Side. I'm not one of those guys. I wish them well, unless they're playing the White Sox. But I do think that there's a different quality to what used to be Kaminsky Field versus Wrigley. You know, you've got to really love baseball, you know, when you used to go into that old field.
The old Comiskey Park.
Right, and if you're in the nosebleed seats and it looked like you were about to fall into the park, you'd get vertigo. You know, Wrigley is so civilized, and, you know, there's white wine interspersed with the
It's
beer.
a little gentrified.
It's a little gentrified. Exactly.
Were you around 30 years ago this month for Disco Demolition Night?
I was not.
You were not?
I was not in Chicago.
Can you prove you were not in the ballpark that night? Can you prove you didn't rush the field?
Is this Hannity or? Have you been associating with? I read about it though. It looks wild.
It's
Unbelievable.
crazy. Center field was on fire.
That's what.
That's like you're saying. Things could get a little crazy in the old Comiskey Park.
And, you know, the neighborhood was a little tougher. Absolutely.
I heard you flew in with Willie Mays, gave him a ride on Air Force One.
Unbelievable. You know, and he's such a gracious, wonderful man. And, you know, he was saying how on election night he had watched, and he remembers staying up all night after that. He was so excited about it. And I tried to describe to him the fact that what he did, what Jackie did, that contributed to the culture that allowed me eventually to even dream of running for president. And I believe that. I mean, I think that there is a direct line between those early pioneers in baseball who, despite great difficulties, you know, the Hank Aaron's, the Willie Mays, the Jackie Robinsons, set a tone about what was possible for America and being able to be part of a team regardless of color, that really did eventually pave the way for other breakthroughs down the road.
Was Willie touched by that?
You know, he's just a very gracious man, and I was touched. I don't know if he was.
Your predecessor was a very good first pitch thrower.
He was very impressive.
In fact, one of the best moments of the Bush presidency, at least symbolically,
Right.
was that dramatic first pitch
At the
shortly after
Yankees game.
9/11
Absolutely.
at Yankee
At
Stadium.
Yankee Stadium, unbelievable. First of all, President Bush is a very gracious person. He's a good athlete. Very fit, and I'm assuming that over at the Rangers he was getting some practice.
Yeah.
So he
Studied Nolan Ryan.
absolutely.
Yep.
But he had a pretty good gun on there. He threw a good pitch. I have to confess, I've only thrown out one first pitch in a major league game, and that was at the American League Championship game that the White Sox appeared. It was the second game, and I went out there, and I will take full credit for the fact that they had lost the first game. From the second game forward, they did not lose 8 games straight. On the other hand, the pitch, although it crossed the plate, I think probably clocked about 30 miles per hour.
Yeah, but that was the changeup. You had them off stride.
Certainly, I would have them off stride on the first pitch. If I threw that same second pitch, I think it would be gone.
Now that night in '01, President Bush warmed up beneath Yankee Stadium with Derek Jeter. You're going to warm up tonight with Albert Pujols.
Not a bad bargain. Although I talked I went into the clubhouse and talked to the American League and National League guys, and I was talking to Beckett and
Right.
Rivera, and I asked him, all right, what's the tip? Everybody gives the same tip. You just throw it high, man.
Right? You don't want to bounce it.
Just don't bounce it.
You don't want to bounce it.
So that was my strategy. I'm treated a little better as a president because I was only a U.S. Senator at the time that I threw out that first pitch, and there was no warm-up, man. They just handed
Went
you
in cold?
They just hand you the ball and they say, go out there. And so there was a lot of loft on that ball. Threw it up real high.
What was the most interesting exchange you had a little while ago with any of the All-Stars?
Yeah, well, I remarked to Jeter that he's one of the older guys here, which is hard to believe because I remember him as the rookie coming in. And of course, he pointed to Wakefield, and
Right, Tim Wakefield.
who I could relate to a little bit more, closer to my age.
Don't try the knuckleball.
No.
Don't try to be a left-handed
Not at all.
Wakefield.
And then, I had a wonderful time talking to Mariano because he had all his sons with him, and I asked, I guess Mariano Jr. I said, well, has your dad taught you that cut fastball? And he said, yeah, I'm getting it. So, we may have to keep an eye on that kid. And then I talked to Ichiro, and I said, now, how exactly do you throw that ball from in the outfield to home plate like a laser?
Right.
And he said, soft muscle.
Soft muscle.
Soft muscle. He said, you don't need to be big. It was a very Zen-like answer.
He's a very Zen-like guy.
He's an impressive guy.
In this morning's New York Times, they asked some of the ball players what they would like to ask you. All right. So I'll be their surrogate here.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Mark Teixeira, now with the Yankees, wants to know who were your favorite players when you were a kid.
I think that when I first started focusing on Major League Baseball, it was when the great Oakland A's teams were coming up back in the 70s. So, Bida Blue and Raleigh Fingers and Reggie Jackson.
Right.
And I just loved the mix of those guys. Later on, I ended up liking the Cincinnati Reds, partly because, you remember that old Superstar show? They would come to Hawaii after the season.
On ABC.
Right, on ABC, and they do the obstacle course and stuff.
Howard Cosell would be by the pool in the yellow blazer.
Right.
What was up with that?
So those guys did it at my high school. That was where the event was taking place. So by that time I was in high school and I was on the basketball team, and so our basketball team would play against the Reds and sometimes against the Dallas Cowboys. But I still remember playing basketball against Johnny Bench and those guys, which obviously you got to know them. and they were real great guys. Although I will tell you, they kind of pushed us high school kids around. They weren't really taking it easy. You could see that these were some competitive guys. A couple of us got some bruises and chipped teeth playing in those games.
So Mark Teixeira's got his answer. Zach Duke of the Pirates wants to know, has your bowling average improved?
It has, as a matter of fact. I bowled a 161 recently.
Well, that's good.
That's not bad. Yeah, Camp David's got a bowling alley, and the White House has a bowling alley. Now, I don't want people thinking, I'm taking off, from thinking about nuclear weapons to go bowl, but every once in a while.
Well, if you take some time off, you're probably working on your three-pointers, right? More likely
Or
to
my
go to the
golf swing.
basketball court.
Absolutely.
All right, Curtis Granderson of the Tigers wants to know, are you tired, and do you ever get stressed?
Yes and yes. That's an easy one. But I do think there is something that sports teaches you about handling stress. The notion that I learned a little bit later in life, but I tried to apply when I was playing basketball, which is, you play your game and you focus on what you have control over. Mm-hmm. You do your best with what you've got, and then you see how it turns out. And you don't get too high or too low, whether you're up or you're down. And that seems to work for me now.
Prince Fielder of the Brewers, who won the home run derby last night, says, do you ever get to just be by yourself, watch a little TV, and I'm quoting him here, and not talk to nobody?
I do, actually, and that's my most precious time, other than spending time with the girls. But usually they go to bed. Michelle goes to bed early. She goes to bed about 9:30. The girls go to bed about 9, and that's when, after I've done the reading, Sports Center. That's when you break out. And if you can catch a ball game, open a beer, put your feet up, and be quiet for a while, nothing beats that.
Now, we all love Sports Center, but you got to make sure they get the new MLB Network in the White House, right?
I believe they do.
Excellent.
There aren't too many stations that you can't get in the White House. If I have to, I can have the CIA tap into something.
You have that kind of pull? That's impressive. And the last one, Michael Young of the Texas Rangers. His question: how can I help?
That's a nice question, and it turns out that Major League Baseball has actually been helping us to promote something called United We Serve. Mm-hmm. It's based on a simple idea, and that is government can't solve all our problems. And when it comes to energy, education, healthcare, community renewal, having ordinary citizens get involved and do whatever they think is a serious contribution, that can make all the difference. So it's tutoring a kid, mentoring somebody, working in a school, volunteering in a health clinic. So we've got a website, www.serve.gov, and log on, figure out how you can volunteer in your community, get involved in community service. We've got a whole summer of service planned that ends on September 11th, obviously to commemorate that tragic day in our history. And I hope that people take a little time out while you're having fun this summer to do something for somebody else.
We're going to let you go now and warm up. Are you excited?
I am thrilled to be here, having a great time, and I enjoyed this interview.
Thank you, Mr.
Bob.
President.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you very much.